The information given on this program is not, nor is it intended to be legal advice. You should consult an attorney for individual advice regarding your own situation. Legal Help Live is brought to you by Pan's Restaurant and Coffee Shop at 6710 La Tierra Boulevard in Los Angeles. Barney's Beanery at 8447 Santa Monica Boulevard in Hollywood. iLearnFast.com, a division of CityCom, and Rodolfo Buonacorte at www.rodolfobuonacorte.com.
Well, it is time for Legal Help Live. I'm Ralph. That's Steve. Welcome to our program. We're going to be talking about some very interesting things. Things that deal with fraud, email fraud, scams, identity theft, bad checks, credit card theft, the most amazing, some ingenious crimes against your personal property. We are living in a world of mass communication and use of computers, and that's good. On the other hand, it's bad because everything you own is in jeopardy all day, every day. And we've got some guests who are going to come today, a lieutenant from Los Angeles Police Department, Bert Gutierrez, and Ross Furukawa from the Santa Monica Daily Press, who are going to explain their roles in protecting our property. Steve, how are you?
Fantastic, Ralph. And the interesting part about this show, it's your show. You can call in at 1-800-405-4222. It's local, it's live, it's in Southern California. Call in, ask your questions about scams, how you protect yourself. This is the largest crime going on in the world right now. Internet fraud, people taking your identity. I mean, how many times do you get an email or you see something in the newspaper? Work from home. You can make $48 an hour. Work from home, you can make $75 an hour. And then you answer it, and then you get a form, and you fill it out, and they want your name and your address and your date of birth and your cell phone and your Social Security number. So they can pay you. Is this real? Is this a scam? Most of the time, it's probably a scam. This is a way to get your Social Security number. With your Social Security number, it's the key to the world. It's the Disney Pass. It's the e-ticket. So you've really got to you got to watch. You got to be smart. You can't be dumb. There are millions and millions of people who get ripped off all over the world. You're here in Southern California, and somebody is ripping you off someplace. What do? How do you protect yourself? The first line of defense is you. You got to be smart. You got to think, am I really going to get $48 an hour for filling out a form? Is this right? Is this wrong? How do you protect yourself?
You know, a general rule is, if it sounds too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. It's probably not true. And you know what? People get emails asking for money because their friends lost at the airport, they've lost their passport. Don't necessarily believe that. If it doesn't sound right to you, good chance it's not right. Do some follow-up. And you know, in preparing for today, I was reading where a lot of people get emails from anywhere in the world. They've got your email address. They've got personal information concerning who you are and what you do. And then they give you the opportunity to unsubscribe. They're out there fishing. They're just looking for anybody who's going to fishing.
We're talking about fishing. We've got a person in the audience who's calling in now, Amy. And we told you to call in at 1-800-405-4222. This is about scams. We're local lawyers. We're going to have guests on that'll be able to answer your questions, tell you where to go. But let's talk to Amy. Amy, what is happening?
Hi. Well, I feel really dumb because I received an email from my husband telling me about a work-at-home thing, which I figured he wanted me to do, and I filled out the application, it came from him. The email came from him, which he never sends me emails unless it's something that has to do with our taxes or something that's important. And I, like an idiot, just filled out the form and, went on autopilot, and I lost $50.
Wow.
And there was no recourse for me to get this back.
So let's see, you get an email from
my husband.
Or you get an email from your daughter, or you get an email from an uncle or an aunt, and
Right.
they want you to send a few bucks, and you think it's them, and you send it in, and then you find out it isn't them.
No, this was actually, he was telling me about an opportunity so I could earn some money.
Amy, let me try to figure this
They
out.
took his email address is what they did.
Okay, so this email actually came from somewhere else. It wasn't forwarded to you. Okay.
Using his email address.
Diabolical. Very, very clever, and actually not very unusual. It's amazing how easily your information and his information can be obtained and then used to their benefit and to your detriment. And how many people around the world gave up $50? These people
like
on the other end
such
can
a
make a fortune.
sucker.
One of the things you can do, an amazing thing that on most of your computers, there are spam detectors. And they will stop lots of this stuff from technically getting through to you. You can protect yourself a lot by putting up a fence so you don't see the information. And you can check through the spam detector to see if there's something that might be something you want to look at. But that would have saved you from getting your husband's email. On the other hand, it could have been a real email.
Or maybe not, because frequently by using a known email sender, it's going to get through. It's going to slip right through.
That's exactly how it got through my spam.
Yeah, it's going to go right through. And I was saying a moment ago, this is a slight twist on what happened to you. Somebody under those circumstances will use a known sender, will get through your scam, will get into your computer, and then they'll give you opportunities. And then it's obviously a commercial enterprise when you see it, and they'll give you an opportunity to unsubscribe. When you see unsubscribe and you respond because you don't want to see that anymore, you have now linked in with this company, and you will be flooded with all kinds of opportunities on a regular and constant basis, because now you've established a communication.
And the question is how you stop them from getting your stuff.
I gave them my computer. That's what I did. I'm kidding. You can't do that.
We're in the hinterlands of scams. You've got to look at this. This is like living in California in 1860.
Wild West.
It's the Wild West right there. And it's electronics, and it's computers, and it's a lot of smart people that are a lot smarter.
I was going to say, they're a lot smarter than me.
A lot smarter than all of us. And their entire life is to take your hard-earned money. And yours probably was guilt because your husband wouldn't have said this if he didn't want you to go to work.
Exactly, and I didn't want to question him because, that makes sense. I can earn money at home.
You're a good wife, but a lousy scam protector.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
What we'll do is we'll ask our guests about how do you protect against that. I think it's pretty real tough. We've got another caller on the line. What I'd like to do for the caller on the line is we're going to talk for a couple more minutes, and then we're going to bring our first guest on.
Okay.
And then we'll get to the next caller because we don't have enough time at this point to go through it. Here's another great, here's a scam that I just recently heard about, is that allegedly people are saying they're from the IRS. They send you an email or a fax that looks just like the IRS's logo. It comes to you, and it basically says you owe them not a large amount of money, maybe $200 or maybe $150. And then they tell you that if you don't pay the money right away, you're going to get arrested. And then you get a phone call from someone who purports to be the IRS investigator or local law enforcement that's going to come down. But if you pay the money by a certain time that day, you won't get arrested. A real scam.
I've heard something similar to that that's going on right now, and that's through the DWP. Where they say they're going to close down, they're going to shut off your electricity. Sometimes you're a commercial enterprise. You really can't spare 5 minutes without electricity unless you pay right now to this address, and they'll give you an address. And a lot of people actually pay. DWP doesn't do that. They don't call you up and say, if you don't send us money at this unknown address, we're going to close you down. It doesn't happen. Think before you get your checkbook out and write a check and send it to some unknown destination.
Well, but with the IRS, everybody feels guilty.
Of course.
So they've got to, scared.
It's frightening.
Well,
we're going to take a break. That's what we're going to do. When we come back, we'll have our first guest. It'll be very, very interesting. A lieutenant from the Los Angeles Police Department. His job is to protect us, you, me, Steve, everybody out there in the city of Los Angeles. And
so
it'll
we're
be
on
very
scams.
interesting.
When we come back, we're going to be on scams. We're going to go into internet scams. We're going to have a law enforcement perspective of what you can do to protect yourself. It's interesting, it's local, and we hope we can save you. The first line of defense is you. It's not the computers, it's not anything else, it's you. We're going to go to break right now. We'll be right back. Give us a call. And this is Legal Help Live.
Stay tuned for more Legal Help Live.
Giving a little can mean a lot to people who are hungry and homeless. Victims of domestic violence need help every day.
I'm here to volunteer.
Together, we can do it. If you do one thing, take one step to help those who need it the most in your community. You just might find that you can bring a smile to those who need it the most. Share your caring at opcc.org.
Looking for something to do this week? You could visit the California Heritage Museum. The museum is open every Wednesday through Sunday, 11 a.m. till 4. Stop by and catch our latest exhibit, find unusual gifts in the museum shop, and picnic on the lawn. We're a block from the beach at Ocean Park Boulevard and Main Street in Santa Monica. The California Heritage Museum. Discover us.
When I grow up, I want to help animals. When I grow up, I want to help animals. When I grow up, I want to help animals.
Tom is my brother. He always made me laugh.
Tom is my firstborn. I taught him how to drive.
Tom is my son. At 20, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. The illness took him to the street and we feared we'd lost him forever.
But I got help from Step Up on Second, and today I have a home. And my friends and family are back in my life.
Step Up on Second, rebuilding lives one step at a time.
Okay, we are back. Ralph here, way over there. That's Steve. We're Legal Help Live. You're calling us at 1-800-405-4222. And you'll notice that there's a third person up here. That's our guest, Lieutenant Bert Gutierrez from the Los Angeles Police Department. Bert is in charge of a lot of people doing a lot of investigation in fraud, internet schemes, check fraud, stuff like that. Is that about fair?
It's fair to say.
We shouldn't identify you as Lieutenant Scam?
No, I'd appreciate it if you would.
Could we call you Bert?
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Well, Bert's here to help us understand what police departments do in order to protect us, the citizens, from these scams, internet And old-fashioned as well.
You know what I think we should do? We've got a bunch of callers waiting.
Let's do it.
The best way to do a talk show is to talk to the people. So we've got Diane on hold. Diane, why don't you come in, and now we have someone who's a lieutenant from the police department who's in charge of, I guess you're in charge of the LAPD scams.
Okay.
All right.
I'll buy that.
So can we help you? How can we help you?
Hello.
Hello.
My grandmother, she's 90 years old, and she keeps getting collection notices for a credit card debt. She says that she's never had this credit card that she gets notices for, but I just found out that she has already paid them over $5,000.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm just finding out about this now.
Yes, ma'am. My first suggestion would be for her to what has happened to the money now she's made these payments? What has happened to it?
Well, she's running out of funds.
Okay, has she
money.
established, so this is not a recognized credit card company. Does she have any background on it? You know, we talked about earlier in terms of the you know, these scams. I would suggest you do a little research. Come down with her documentation. We have to take these reports firsthand, so she'd have to go to a local police station. But if she's never had that credit card, then I would say, in all likelihood, she's already been victimized. Bring her information to the local police station, and that'll be the first step. What I advise people to do is to do a little research on any company that's trying to solicit you for any money. Is there contact information there? Typically, they'll have a person, perhaps, or a phone number. But if it's a legitimate creditor, they're going to have an advertised public phone that she should call first. I mean, we talked earlier about the utility scams. Before you respond to that number, check the internet from the legitimate business site to verify this.
But they have her money already. Now they've got $5,000 of her money. You know, you might automatically, because you don't know what else has happened out there, you can get her free 3 credit reports right now and find out what else is out there. They may have a lien on her house. There could be all kinds of things going on.
They may have her house.
They may even own her house. We've had cases where they've owned the house.
Yeah.
So get the credit reports right now. They're free.
Absolutely. You know, we always advise people to be vigilant, and that's one of the things you do. Get your annual credit report. Look for any suspicious activity. If people have opened credit lines that she doesn't recognize, this is the kind of information we're going to need as well. So all the documentation pertaining to this, the initial letters she received, she needs to bring that with her to the local police station and make a report.
And you also said, excuse me, that your mother's 90. This problem for older people is epidemic. Epidemic in terms of the amount of elders who are victimized by these thieves out here. So what you have to do is get involved now in reviewing some of your mom's mail, reviewing some of your mom's emails if she's doing email, and you know, you've got to be her protector now. They may have her money, but you got to make sure they don't take the house, and they don't have if she's still lucky to have a car and drive, they don't take her car away from her. So be vigilant, check out the local police, get the information, and make sure you check out those credit reports. Because the credit reports, you can put a fraud alert out. That'll stop people from doing anything until they check with her or you directly.
You know, Diane, the reality is this. The victim in this instance is your 90-year-old grandmother, but I would suspect, and maybe Bert can tell me if I'm going off in the wrong direction here, but if your grandmother sent in $5,000, there may be another 10, 20, 30 other grandmas who have done the exact same thing within the last several months.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, this is a volume type business, whether it be by internet or mailings or phone calls. And you bring up a very valid point. There's studies out there that say that the elderly are more likely to fall victim to these types of scams. They become less likely to identify or become or be suspicious at this point in life.
Well, Diana, I hope we've answered your question. You tell your grandmother that we'll think kind things for her, but check things out because you don't know what else is going on there.
Thank you. Those were very good suggestions.
And I would
Thank
advise you. I would advise you to go with her to file this report, ma'am, because the whole thing, the process may be intimidating for her, and bring whatever paperwork with her.
Yeah.
The credit reports would be fantastic. Those types of things, anything to help the investigators as to what happened.
Yeah, I think
in
that's
this case.
I think that's a very valid idea, and I think sending a 9-year-old to any government agency, especially one where people are walking around with uniforms, it's kind of frightening. Definitely go with her.
Absolutely.
I will. Thank you very much.
And let's go to the next call. We've got Marianne on the phone. Marianne? Is it Marianne or Miriam?
Miriam.
Miriam, how can we help you?
Well, I was logging on to my computer. I was going to look for a bingo game, and all of a sudden there was an FBI screen lock on my computer, and it said that I had to pay a $1,000 fine in order. I was being investigated for unlawful internet use, and in order to get the report, I had to pay $1,000, and I don't have access to my computer at all.
Okay,
I'm really
ma'am.
nervous because how do I know that it is not the FBI or?
Well, in this case, understand in law enforcement, we're not going to tip you off, okay? In this type of thing, okay? If you're guilty of illegal activity, we're not going to use the internet to contact you, okay? And the interesting thing is, I was talking to our computer forensic people earlier, this is one of the more recent scams we're seeing out there, and we're calling this ransomware. They essentially send you an email, it infects your computer, and if you haven't clicked on any links, please don't, because that's how it's going to lock down your computer. If you haven't clicked on anything, you can just delete that email. That's what I would suggest you do. But if your computer is locked up and they're asking for that money, they in essence are holding your computer for ransom, and they're asking you to pay that $1,000, and some people are doing it. My suggestion for you is to take that computer to an IT person, because even if you send them that money, your computer's never going to go back to the original state it was.
No, it doesn't sound like that's part of the deal. Not at all.
No.
So if I stand in front of the computer and put my hands up like this, that won't remove it? I mean, it doesn't get the FBI.
They want you to reach in for your wallet or your credit card.
Unbelievable.
Okay. No, this is a very typical scam we've seen lately. Don't click on any links, ma'am, if you haven't.
Okay.
How does she get a computer back up?
Well, is it locked already?
It's locked already.
Okay, ma'am, take it to an IT professional, a legitimate IT person, to get it fixed, and pay that money to get your computer restored to where it was. You know, it brings up another point. Always back up your data. Always have your passwords. Those types of things. You know, practice good data saving type stuff, because you don't want to lose all that information. Your financial records, your personal records. Hopefully, you've been doing that. And hopefully they're able to help you and save your data. But do not click on anything.
If you're hit once, what's to stop them from hitting you again?
Well, don't open suspicious emails. Don't click on anything, provided you do. And that's really your best defense. We've been talking about that, being vigilant, being skeptical. If it sounds too good, it probably is. In this case, they're dealing with basically computer extortion here. They've locked up your computer, they've infected it with a virus, and now they're telling you you're under investigation.
You know, I had that happen to me, and I'm not a geek. I don't look too geeky, but I may sound geeky, but I'm really not geeky. But what I did to get rid of it is I put my hands up in the air, and then I went in and I just turned the machine off. I held the button down long enough, and I guess I got tired of the other side waiting outside with the badge. And eventually it turned off, I went back on, and it opened it up. But I would follow the lieutenant's advice, go to somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah,
well, typically if you've clicked on the link or something embedded in the email, typically the email itself does not generate the virus. It's when you click on links or it takes you to another site.
Wow.
That's what you're concerned about. So it wouldn't be a bad suggestion, turn off the computer, see if it's still locked up. But my suggestion, if you've clicked on anything and you're unable to do anything, is take it to an IT professional, because you don't know what it's infected your computer with. And for me, that's money much better spent than sending these people $1,000 who are holding your computer.
Okay, we got to move on. Thank you very much for calling Legal Help Live. And our next caller is Ralph. Ralph, welcome to Legal Help Live. How can we help you?
Yeah, I don't know if this is illegal, but I was getting gas and a gentleman well-dressed in a suit came up to me, and he asked me if I could give him a gallon or two of gas. He said he forgot his wallet and he was going to work. So I gave him a gallon, and the next week I saw him talking to another lady. He didn't see my face, and he was asking her the same question. And 3 weeks after that, I saw him at another gas station doing the same thing, asking people for gas because he said he forgot his wallet.
That's a common scam, isn't it, Lieutenant?
Well, it's no different. Think about it. It's just panhandling. I mean, that's just a different form of it. Gas is expensive these days, and you, out of your kindness of your heart, helped him out. He's panhandling. It is illegal. You can notify your local police station and advise them of what this character is doing.
Because he's working all down Wilshire Boulevard in the Brentwood area.
Really? That's really good to know. That's really very good to know. I think
But this goes on all the time. I mean, it goes on
Lots of it goes on
There's
all
an
the
entire scam that goes on that's not related to the internet, not related to seniors.
Right.
There are people that come up to you in every parking lot, in the drugstore, you name it. They forgot their this,
It was
or they
the
forgot
19th century where they first said a sucker's born every minute. And you know what? If you're standing in a gas station and somebody asks for a couple of gallons of gas, say no. Just say no. I think one of the things the Los Angeles Police Department and the other fine police departments in Southern California can do, other than catching these people, which is sometimes impossible, is to inform the public to make the target harder, to make you more difficult to
well-dressed
scam.
in a suit and tie.
And you're helping doing that right now. You're helping us harden the target.
Remember what I said? This is 1850 in California. All the old scams are still here. The new stuff is the internet scam. But all the old ones are, so don't let your guard down. All the old things that went on for the last 160 some odd years are still being done. They're not done away with.
Yeah, in the 1850s, people would come up to the feed station and say, I needed a bucket of oats for my horse. And it's the same thing, right?
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Well, good luck. And,
all right, good luck to you.
And we've got 3 people waiting, so we'll go to the next call.
Okay.
Veronica, welcome to Legal Help Live.
Yes, hi. I keep getting calls. I'm on the no-call list. I keep getting calls from various people. Some of them say, hi, Veronica, like they're an old friend. And I find that they're always either trying to sell me something, fix my home, or it's a constant thing. And the latest thing that I get is you're going to get $3,000 free, and then they talk about a medical alert. How they know I'm an old lady, I don't know. But I really would like to stop this.
Well, we'll turn this over to
Bert, help us out here.
Lieutenant.
Well, first off, I'm glad you haven't provided them with anything. You're very correct to be skeptical. Nobody's going to give you $3,000. You know, if it sounds too good to be true, it quite simply is. I don't know how to tell you this, how to stop the phone calls. Unfortunately, we're all victims.
Well, but how about the do not call thing? I mean, they made the government, I guess the same one that says that we can sign up on the insurance online right now, but the government said that if we got on the do not call list, this would stop all the...
Stephen, I really think that the do not call list is supposed to stop legitimate businesses from making calls. This guy doesn't sound legitimate. He doesn't care about no callers.
So he's probably operating from...
He doesn't care.
Well, the other thing, there's technology involved here as well. I mean, with automated dialers, I mean, almost typically when somebody calls you, and they call my home, there's a delay. There's nobody there. Then they finally say hi. They have your name. They have some basic information on you, and then they're going to try to sell you something. It could be legitimate, or they're going to try to scam you. Best thing to do is quite simply, as soon as I hear that pause, personally, I just hang up because I'm not interested in what they're selling. That's not the way I do business. You're more likely to fall prey to some, be victimized this way. And unfortunately, first off, I think there is a time limit. Eventually you do fall off you kind of have to re-up with a do not call list.
So there is, that's true.
I think it does expire at some point, but moreover, there's technology out there, just like we talked about phishing earlier, just like I can create an illegitimate website to look legitimate, same thing. They have these automatic dialers. You can redirect the phone to show a different number, perhaps one that you do recognize. But at the end of the day, you're doing the best thing. Just hang up on them, or as soon as you hear that pause, don't do business with them.
I'm really glad you just said that, because when I'm home and I get a call and there's a pause, I hang up before I hear a voice.
Yeah,
and
that's what I've started doing.
And now I'm going to do that, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I appreciate your saying that.
And I guess you've hit it right, Ralph and Lieutenant. These are thieves out there, and these are not honest, good, hard-working people. They're hard-working thieves, and I guess the best way to stop them is just to hang up on them. I mean, and it sounds like our caller is a nice lady who
absolutely
thought she wasn't going to get calls.
Absolutely.
But, you're just lucky that that's the price you pay today in this kind of society. It's not right, and it may change sometime in the future, but it's not going to change in our lifetime.
I can't say there's not legitimate businesses out there cold calling, but what I am saying, you're more likely to be victimized in that way. Okay, it's not the way I would do business in these days and times, because there's so many people out there trying to scam us.
Thank you. I appreciate your help.
And thank you for calling Legal Help Live. We appreciate it. If
Thank you,
there were 3 things that you could tell the audience what they could do to protect themselves, what would you tell them as a law enforcement person who deals in this stuff day in and day out?
I think we talked about it. Be skeptical, be vigilant, and there's a couple of websites I'd like to refer to you.
Good idea. That would be very helpful.
Let's put these.
LAPD online. If you're a victim, or if you want to find out the kind of scams are out there, that information is available. And another one I highly recommend.
You can see that it's up in the lower third on the monitor right now. So everybody everybody watching sees that website. Okay, I'm sorry.
Fantastic. And the other one is ic3.gov. If you think it's a hoax, they actually have a pretty interesting article up right now about the ransomware. Put on the search. Check ransomware, and it'll talk about what that previous caller talked about our computer being locked up. So it's a great place to look for the most frequent internet type scams we're seeing out there. It's a great place to do research. And again, a lot of these crimes are being perpetrated via the internet, but it's also your best friend to research legitimate companies. You talked about the utility scams. These companies don't operate that way. And it's a good place to educate yourself, do a little research, and really harden the target, become self-aware so these things do not happen to you.
Remember, the first scam stops right with you.
Absolutely.
You won't be scammed if you say no. You won't be scammed if you don't respond. Never reach in your pocket and give them a dime. Never answer anything that you don't know who you're actually talking to. And make sure you don't need a lawyer, you don't need a lieutenant, you don't need Ralph and Steve. You can stop most of these scams by doing nothing. If it's too good to be true, it isn't true. Christmas does not come 365 days a year. You can protect yourself by saying no. Hanging up on the phone is fine. Not responding to emails is even greater. These are the things you can do to protect yourself. Remember, we can't blame anybody but ourselves on some of these things we do.
And if you're already a victim of a crime, go to the police department, because you may be amongst a really large crowd of people who are also victims.
Okay,
Bert, that was fantastic. Thank you very much for being here. We're going to say bye to Bert, and we're going to take a little bit of a break. We've got a new guest when we come back, and that'll be in just a few moments.
And we have a number of callers online. Hold on, we'll get to you after the break. And for the rest of you, there are some lines open in the East Valley at 1-800-405-4222. Thanks a lot, Lieutenant. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Stay tuned for more Legal Help Live.
Our doors are open to all at St. Joseph Center, where we provide intervention, prevention, and education services. Our early childhood development centers encourage learning while parents seek work. Families receive food for the week. Case managers counsel seniors, veterans, and families. We also teach job skills to young and old. Experience the joy of helping at St. Joseph Center. We're planting hope, growing lives for all those in need.
A stranger on the phone said I won a sweepstakes, but I was smarter.
Someone tried to open a credit card in my name, but I was smarter.
A friend said I should sign my house over to him, but I was smarter. The Los Angeles County Department of Consumer Affairs can help you avoid scams and protect your financial well-being. Don't become another victim of fraud. Call the Department of Consumer Affairs and we'll help you be
Smarter Seniors.
Before Christmas, my life was a mess. I was incarcerated, a drug addict, totally confused and didn't have any sense of direction. Some of the things they did is they gave me mock interviews, they assist me with my application. What I'm doing now, I work for a company that gives me a lot of responsibilities, and it's been great. It's been good.
After my service ended, the biggest battle I faced was readjusting to civilian life.
New Directions provides services specifically for women like you who face homelessness, substance abuse, and trauma.
I joined the military to save lives. New Directions helped me save my own.
If you were honorably discharged from the military, you're entitled to veteran services. Go to ndvets.org for help.
We are back. Ralph here, Steve over there somewhere, and Ross Furukawa is with us. He's the one of the founders and still running the Santa Monica Daily Press. It's a local newspaper here. And you know what? Newspapers are an integral element in informing the public, and an informed public is going to be a better protected public. I firmly believe that, and I think that print media still is the way to get news. What do you think?
Well, you can't with print. You can't put the toothpaste back into the tube. Right? We print thousands of papers every day, and so we have to get it right.
Well, and you're a daily paper, which, you know, that's a lot of stuff out there.
We are daily.
So we had the law enforcement, and now we have the scam. I guess I'd call you the scam buster, because you investigate and put it out there. And in many instances, what law enforcement can't do, I think that the press does do, because it puts education out there, and it does much more of a background that it can release things on. Now we've got a bunch of callers on the line, so let's take our first call. And then
ready?
You ready?
Sure.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Let's go to Walter. Welcome to Legal Help Live.
Hi. Good evening. I'm Walter, and my question is, how can I tell if my phone is tapped? This NSA thing has been really scary.
How can you tell if your phone is tapped?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a...
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I guess one way is if you hear a voice that's not supposed to be part of your conversation saying, "Could you speak up a little bit?" That's a certain way.
Well, you know, if you think your phone's tapped, the easy answer to that is you call the local police department, have them come out. They've got some electronic stuff, they can check it out, or there's services that can check as to whether or not your phone's tapped.
That's
or
true.
There may be a court-ordered search warrant, and you may be, you know, we had, what was it? What was it? Whitey Bulger?
Yeah.
Whitey Bulger was living in Santa Monica for how many years?
How many? Like 16 years or something?
A long time, couple decades.
Yeah,
on the most wanted FBI list. The guy was living like a regular. He was young when he moved out here.
Yep.
Became a senior, getting, I assume, with his millions of dollars stuck in his apartment for all the hits that he's done. He was probably going to all the senior citizens things, etc. And his phone may have been tapped. Who knows?
Well, you know, I mean, in light of all of the news that's come out recently, I think we should all just assume our phones are tapped and speak that way, and assume your internet activity is being watched, because I think we've just figured that out.
Well, but as a newspaper reporter, it's a good. And let me ask you this question: aren't you the kind of person that they want to bug, and they want to tap, and they want to get into your email, not for taking your credit, because they don't pay newspaper people $1 million too often. So, I mean, how do you protect against that? You're doing a story, you've got, and there are a lot of people who'd like to know what it would be. How do you protect yourself from being, your privacy being violated?
Well, you know, we really try to just keep as many firewalls up as that we can, and the beauty of the daily is that whatever we're writing about is going to be public within about 12 hours of us writing it. I mean, our turnaround is literally that quick. So, probably since we're on fraud and misinformation, where the fraud and misinformation happens is when people are feeding us stories. So, in the event that somebody, there's a lot of hot topics in Santa Monica, whether it's politics or development, and many times you'll have one side feeding stories to us about the other side, and it might be completely untrue. So,
I'm sorry, Ross, that's something I have not thought about because I don't think about how newspapers function particularly, but what you just said is fascinating. How do you guard against being fed misinformation by people who have agendas to pursue?
And I guess you don't call that scam in this situation. It's what we call it. Yeah, it's two competing interests in a community.
Sure.
And everybody wants you to write a story that's favorable to them.
Sure.
Puts their thing in the best light. And who is scamming you, and how do you tell?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's a good context to put it in. So, we in Santa Monica, you can have very limited misinformation given to us. So that might be someone who wants to badmouth somebody, one of their neighbors, and tell us that they did something, and we look into it. And other examples would be things that are really sophisticated. So, without mentioning any names, because we're coming out with the story soon, is there's a lot of wrangling happening around development, and so as a result, there's lots of competing interests, and they're sophisticated. They're staging protests. They're
you said stage.
Well, not staging. They're organizing protests. Probably a better word for it.
Okay.
And
things that just things you can't ignore as a news organization.
Well, let me go. You've done a bunch of articles on seniors and how they get scammed. So why don't we talk about what you've developed as you see as what kind of defenses? Because I know you've written on both sides of it. What kind of defenses can seniors and a senior, I guess in today's electronics, because we're all sort of feeble at this, is anybody over 27? That's what I define as a senior. How can we all protect ourselves from these electronic scams that are going on out there, or the regular scam? You've looked into it, you've written about it, and maybe you can give some sage advice with all the gray hair I see in your head.
Well, first of all, can I apply to ARP since I'm now officially over 27 and a senior?
You're in there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Try, see what happens.
I'll swear you in.
That'd be fraudulent.
You're now a member, Barb. Raise your right hand.
I think you guys were talking earlier. A lot of it is just common sense. A lot of it is, if it seems too good to be true, it's not true. I heard a phone call where somebody was calling that had personal information. And so, the scams are getting really sophisticated, in the case of you think it's coming from your husband. So, really so in the newsroom, we're probably the most, what's the word I'm looking for? We're very skeptical, right? Anything anybody tells us, we don't really believe until we've confirmed it. So we use the internet to find numbers for people who we can call and confirm. We don't confirm anything just off of a website.
But how do you know you're talking to the right person?
Well, that's a point. I guess instincts. I'm very senior, so I can pick up on that stuff.
We got a bunch of calls coming in, so why don't we talk to Kathy. Kathy, welcome to Legal Help Live. How can we scam you? I mean, how can we talk to you?
Well, I get these emails asking me to help people bail them out of like a foreign country, and how can I don't want to be receiving these anymore. And then also, but on the other side, I'm wondering, are any of these stories ever real?
Interesting.
How do you? So you're asking now you've got an email, somebody, and it's from somebody who you know, and it purports to say that they're stuck in a foreign country. Maybe they lost their passport. I remember that happened in an email I got a couple of years ago. How do you verify what you've got so that you don't send money to
what
no
happened?
one?
What happens, and it's happened to me. I get an email from somebody telling me their ex they've wallet and all their credit cards are gone. They're stuck in an airport in London. I know these people went to London. Can I wire them $250 so they can get a meal and get in a hotel and wait for American Express to deliver their credit cards? And what do? I know these people. I know they went to England. Do I send them the money, or is it a scam?
Well, let me flip it just a little bit. What does an investigative reporter do to determine what this is all about? Not in a single instance, but generally.
We use the phone.
I pick up the phone and I
pick up the phone, and so in that instance, your friend is in London.
Yeah.
And I need some money, and send me some money. Well, if you pick up the phone, you've just figured that out. You've just ascertained that it's a scam.
I never thought of that.
Well, that exact same thing happened to somebody who spends a lot of time in England, and they purportedly sent me an email saying, here I am, stuck, just as we've been discussing. And fortunately, never am I going to send money to somebody blindly in an airport in London. I don't care who it is. I'm going to determine whether I've got a true issue or not. I knew that they had just come back, so I called them on the phone. I said, and I didn't want to send them an email because I assumed that the email would not go to my friend. It would go to whomever was fraudulently sending me this thing. So I called him on the phone, just exactly as you just said. And he said, you're the fourth person who's called me this hour to say that they've been solicited. No, I'm not in London. Thank you for calling.
But there's another, Kathy, there's another scam going on out there that is similar, but it's even worse. You get a call from someone in some embassy saying that your nephew has been arrested for shoplifting in some place and he's traveling. And he's going to go to the local jail. But for $1,250, the embassy, the U.S. Embassy, will take him, put him on a plane, and get him back to the United States. And then a few minutes later, you get another phone call, and it sounds like a kid who might be your nephew, and he knows enough. He knows the kid's name and where he was born and where he went to high school.
I'll tell you, my nephew should have treated me better before I sent him $1,200.
So what do you do there?
That's a tough call. I think the caller's question was, how do you get off these lists, right? There's all these lists that you're on, and you get them all the time, and unfortunately, there's no great answer for that. I happen to have a good friend who works in, there's no better way to say this. He sends spam for a living. He's a legitimate company. He goes and finds lawyers like you guys, leads for cases, and he sends out hundreds of thousands of emails every hour. Now, he curates these lists by, I don't know how he gets them, but once you're on a list, those lists get sold and they get sold and they get sold, and really the only solution is to change your email address.
Yeah, you really can't. I don't care what they tell you, and you can't get off these lists. When you push to unsubscribe, you get more subscriptions.
When you push unsubscribe, you're confirming that you have there's a human behind the email address.
Right. Now they've actually established a connection. So if again, we started with this one. If you see unsubscribe and you're not sure that you're dealing with a legitimate company, don't do that. Just get out. Just get out of the email. Delete it.
And don't leave your computer. You go to one of these famous shishi coffee places where you pay as much for a pound of coffee as you pay for a cup of coffee, and you got the community email in there, and you go to the restroom and you leave your computer there. Your computer can get scammed, besides being stolen, but can probably get scammed or stolen in the time that you're sitting in this wonderful place with the leather chairs, drinking your latte, and you go to the restroom and your computer's gone. Then all your information is given to
Or sucking information without taking the computer. The technology exists for that, and I think that might even be worse because you don't even know what just happened. You don't know that you've just lost all your information.
And the problem is the law really doesn't give you protection. I mean, this is Legal Help Live, but we are really in an area where the most protection probably comes from the press, which I think that writes the articles about this stuff because it tells people, and the police departments that put out seminars and training seminars, and some of these shows that tell you how you can defend yourself, because the law really doesn't help you, unfortunately. Once in a while, there's a massive arrest, but most of the time, they're ripping us off for small amounts of stuff, but it's done in millions of people.
Let me ask you this, Ross. You're here now, and I think the purpose of your being here and our being here this afternoon is to see if we can inform the public about how to protect themselves. Because the police department, as much as they want to, they don't have enough. They don't have enough people. No police department does. What stories have you written, just off the top of your head, your favorite stories about what type of scams, and how did you conclude those stories, and how people can protect themselves?
We've got 3 callers on the line.
Okay. Well, real quick. So we've done a series of stories as far back as 2004 about pyramid schemes. I'll give you, they have the pyramid, and people pay $100 in, and eventually you get to the top of the pyramid. And those are very local. And we wrote a whole series of articles informing people that this scam was happening. And that probably affected the most amount of people locally as far as something that we did, just because everybody knew that there was a pyramid scam was happening in Santa Monica, so nobody participated.
Excellent. I think that's
excellent. That's a way to protect people.
Yep.
The small claims court really doesn't protect you because
too late.
You don't even know who they are.
That's too late. Yeah.
So the judicial system, which is generally saving us from boxing people around, really doesn't help us, because we are looking at shadow defendants. We don't even know who these people are. We don't even know where they are. So, but we know that Maureen's been waiting on patiently for 30 minutes. Maureen, welcome to Legal Help Live, and how can we help you?
Hi. I know that there are thousands of amazing journalists, and there's incredible reporting going on in this country. I came here about 14 years ago. I'd been living in London for many, many years, and I was really shocked when I first watched the news and found the sensationalism and this kind of a technique that was being used, whereby they would say they'd give a little bit of news, and then they'd say, and coming up after the break, hear how a man was eaten by a whatever, and then you'd wait for the entire news thing to get this extraordinary, disturbing story. And I was really shocked. And then I realized a lot of the news reporting that's going on in some of the areas, not all of them, obviously. There are some amazing things going on as well. But a lot of it seemed to be really just geared toward ratings. And I guess my question is, how can we as lay people really even trust the news that's coming, to us?
Wow, that's you. That's you.
Well, here's you have a PhD. You can write your thesis.
So news is getting shorter. News is getting just certainly the leads are getting shorter, and they're getting more sensationalized. That's what we all know. Luckily, from a macro standpoint, I don't know that I have the answer of how does a layperson dig through all of the flash and bang that you're going to see on a typical newscast. Locally, I can speak very well to locally. We have to curate. We get hundreds of press releases in every day, and we have to curate. We have in the case of today's paper, we have 20 pages we have to curate news into, and so my editors and my writers have to make the decision of what we think is the most important news and information for you as a citizen. And so I guess answering your question, it kind of comes down to where do you trust the organizations that is delivering the news? Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay.
Well, welcome to America. You've only been here 14 years. I think the sensationalism goes on a lot. It's economically driven, unfortunately. But I suspect that the printed media goes through some verification of every story before you put it out in print, and to make sure that you're not part of the scam.
Absolutely.
So other than, and I've seen an award-winning TV show on live news on television. How many sources do you actually check before you actually write about it?
Sure. So when we have a story to write, particularly if it's a sensitive story about, right, lately politics and development are just hot button issues, and as a result we have to check at least 3 sources. And I'll tell you what, the best way to get the truth into a story is to check the enemy, right? So 2 things: check the enemy, go through 3 sources, check the enemy, and follow the money.
Okay. I don't know exactly what this means, but you're going to explain this because this sounds fascinating.
That's the same thing the bad guys do.
Right. So in the case of a story, and you're trying to get a good both sides of an issue, whether it's from politicians or developers or anything really that's of sensitive nature. First thing, go to 3 sources, right? And so you have to get 3 different angles on the same facts.
Okay.
Second thing is follow the money, right? So who's paying for it? Who's paying for the PR firm to put out the release? Who's paying for the organization? And that will tell you a lot. And then the last thing is check your enemies. So if you have 2 developers on 2 different sides of an issue, and one is complaining about the other, always go to the other, because they're going to, somewhere in the middle of there is going to be the truth of what's happening.
I think that's a great answer.
So
and
fascinating
as a process.
Let's put this really practically. Here's what the press does before they write a sentence. If you would take a quarter of that time and do some verification before you push the button and sent it, or sent the money to somebody soliciting it, you would probably save yourself the $250. The first defense is try and find out the truth. And that's what the press is trying to do, or at least this is what this press is doing. And that's really the solution and the defense to most of the scams that we as citizens of cities, counties, states, and this nation and world are put to, is who's trying to get us and why, and look into it. Say to yourself, there's a sucker born every minute. I don't want to be that fool. I got to check it out, or I got to wait. It's just amazing if you wait an hour before you do it. Things seem to.
You know what? I'm listening to the wonderful answers we got from Bert, our lieutenant from the Los Angeles Police Department, and also Ross's concept and procedure and protocol in verifying a news story. Between the 2, I think our takeaway moment here is take a step back, as Steve just said, and verify. Make sure that you aren't participating.
Ralph, what we got to do now is we've got a caller that's been waiting on for about 50 minutes. I want to get her on.
Okay, let's
Matilda, thank you very much for your patience.
Matilda sounds like a busy signal.
Well, we checked.
No Matilda.
No Matilda.
Okay,
I verified the source.
We just verified.
And I waited 45 minutes.
Right. Well, coming back to our takeaway on this program, verify. Take a step back and verify. The police department can't protect everybody all the time, but you can protect yourselves. And if you do what Ross's newspaper reporters do in verifying a story before you jump to send somebody some money for something, I think you won't do it unless somebody really is your friend and they need it. You know what, Ross? It's time for us to go.
Okay.
It's already that time. Thank you very much. Thank you for being there and in print every day. We need that.
Well, I'm going to shake your hand too.
Thank you.
And I've counted to 5 before I did it.
Excellent, wonderful, fantastic program. I thought today with Lieutenant Bert from the Los Angeles Police Department, Bert Gutierrez. Ross from the Daily Press in Santa Monica. Very informative, I think, and a very, very sensitive issue. Thank you for being here. It was a pleasure talking to you, listening to your questions, trying to answer those questions. Steve, thank you, sir. And we'll see you all next time. Take care, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody, and have a great week.